What's up, guys? Welcome back to Boost Brothers Garage. Today we are going to continue work on my DIY front splitter for my 944 race car. Stay tuned. If you haven't seen part one of my splitter build, I'll post a link up here. You should probably check it out first. We got a lot of the legwork done in that video, but today we're going to try to finish everything off. I've done a couple things off camera that I need to update you with real quick though. The first thing I did was to trim the sides of the splitter. The front, you still have 5 inches, but on the sides it looked a little ridiculous, so I went ahead and trimmed that down on both sides and gave it a nice radius. I think it turned out pretty good. And then I went ahead and used a fiberglass resin to seal the top of the splitter and the edges. I still have to do the underside. And I added this aluminum square tube just for some additional structure. It really helps with the stiffness of the splitter. And I just used rib nuts in the square tube and then bolted it through from the bottom. The next step is going to be trimming right here on each side for a little extra tire clearance. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole for the eye hook for the center support wire that I'm going to run. I'm doing this now because after this I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to do resin on the bottom of the splitter, and I want the resin to go into this hole a little bit to make sure that everything stays 100% waterproof. Time to throw on a coat of resin and then sit and wait for 2 or 3 hours until it cures, and we can button this thing up. The reason I added the resin is twofold. One, it's gonna waterproof this splitter, which is obviously important when you're using a wood splitter. And 2, it's gonna offer a little bit more finished look once I sand it down a little bit and paint it. Now we wait. The resin is dry and I'm doing my final test fit. I've made the marks for where I want the trim that's sealing the bumper to the splitter. I've got the bumper mounted and everything's looking really good. So now I need to pull the splitter back off. I need to screw the trim on and I need to paint it. And then we'll come back, do the center support, and we're done. Time for paint. All right, guys, the splitter is complete. Pretty happy with the results. I'll show you the finished product and then I'll go back and kind of explain what I would do differently next time. Here we have it. 5-inch extension, AB marine plywood with resin. We've got our garden edge trim sealing the splitter to the bumper. I used braided cable that goes up to the bumper support where the tow hook goes, and it comes down and attaches to this eye hook as a center support. It sits about 4.5 inches off the ground right now, which should be a pretty good height. All in all, I don't think it looks too hateful. As for what I would do differently, the main thing is the fiberglass resin. So I'll throw a picture up here right now, but you can still see the grain of the wood through the fiberglass resin. I probably should have done one more coat where you actually see the splitter and then sanded it down real good so it was smooth. At that point it wouldn't quite look like wood. I mean, even though it is wood, I don't really want it to look like wood. So I would change how I did the fiberglass resin. Other than that, the center support cable I have, the reason I did a cable and not turnbuckles or some sort of solid rod is because I want the splitter to be able to move upward freely, just not downward. The cable has a little bit too much slack for my liking. At some point I'm probably gonna have to go back and redo that. For now it's fine. I mean, hell, I don't think the car is gonna be going fast enough to pull that front splitter down to the point where that cable's really gonna come into play just yet. Maybe once I do the 07K swap. But all in all, it was a pretty fun project. I have more money in it than I ever thought I was going to. I probably have close to $200 in this front splitter, and that's because I used marine plywood, which was more expensive. I did fiberglass, which some people don't do. I had to buy hardware, and I bought a rib nut tool, and yada, yada, yada. So if you were starting from scratch and you did it exactly how I did, and you had to get all the same stuff, expect to spend around $200. If you have a lot of extra hardware, and you have steel plate laying around, you have a rib nut, and you just need to get some resin and a sheet of plywood, then you're looking less than 50 bucks. We'll find out in late April how the aero mods I've done this off season affect the car. We're taking it to Putnam Park so that we can do a baseline run, try to get a good solid lap time before we do the 07K swap, and then we'll go back as soon as the 07K swap's done and see what the performance difference is there, and then we'll turbo the 07K and we'll do it again. So this is kind of a baseline. Right now the car doesn't need all the aero, but it's going to, and it looks cool, and why the hell not? So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.